Entering today, the last 5 times Syracuse and Notre Dame men's lacrosse faced each other, the Irish have won by an aggregate of 93-46, and the beat rolled on this afternoon as Notre Dame used a furious fourth quarter rally to knock off the Orange 20-12 in the JMA Dome. Over the next half hour, we're breaking down the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. Orange Press Pass starts right now. Hey, and welcome into our CitrusTV studios. John Dales, Jesse Cook, Philip Galati after a 20-12 blowout win in the Dome for Notre Dame over Syracuse. Guys, a whole lot you can say about that loss for SU. Jesse, I'll start with you. What's your first thought after this game?
Syracuse needs much better shot selection. How many times did we see the Orange have to take a running shot that went yards over the goal? That's the bare minimum for Syracuse, at least putting it near the goalie.
And on the defensive side of things, one-on-one, it just wasn't good enough for the Orange. Too many defenders, just a step late, not anticipating, too much reacting to the play, and not actively moving to try and make something happen. Defensively, got to be better on an individual basis.
All right, guys, so that's a couple of thoughts we've had after this one, but somebody who was in the Dome that has plenty of thoughts on this contest is our very own Ryan Bridges, our men's lacrosse beat reporter, who joins us now live from the JMA Wireless Dome. Ryan, a lot of things you can take away from a game like that. We just heard a couple of them. First question I've got for you, what went wrong in that fourth quarter for the Orange where the Irish ran away with it?
John, this was an absolutely insane game that had a lot to do with the face-off circle. This is a very back-and-forth game between the two teams inside that face-off circle, but in that fourth quarter, Syracuse was 2 for 11 inside that face-off X, and that really just changed the whole complexion of the game. Notre Dame was just scoring goal after goal after goal. The Notre Dame fans, they just got rowdier and rowdier, and Syracuse was just lifeless. They couldn't get the ball. They had almost no possessions in that fourth quarter. And then finally, when they won a face-off, it was way too late in the quarter for Syracuse to do anything. They were already down about 5 or 6 goals, and there wasn't really much that the Orange could do in that scenario.
Ryan, you said that Syracuse did not have a lot of offensive opportunities in that fourth quarter, mainly because Notre Dame was so efficient with the ball. But let's talk about the Notre Dame defense. What did the Fighting Irish do so well to close off on Orange shooters?
Phil, it was a massive confusion inside the JMA Wireless Dome. Everybody, Syracuse-wise, was standing up. They were cheering. They were hugging each other, thought they had doubled the lead over a top 3 team in the nation, and all the Notre Dame fans were sitting down. But as the ball got moved across the field after the save was made, everybody on the Syracuse sideline started to wonder what happened, and all the Notre Dame fans began to rise. I think what happened is the ball was inside Liam Intiman's stick, the Notre Dame goalie. It was inside of his stick, and the ball had crossed the goal line. However, Syracuse thought the ball was a goal. Liam Intiman never got a signal that said it was not. He chucked the ball all the way across the field. Then Notre Dame scores the game-tying goal. I think it had to do something with the possession inside of his stick, whether the ball was secure. Meanwhile, all this is happening. Gary Gate and his staff are screaming at the referee, asking how was it not a goal. Dave Petramala, they were shocked about what was going on, and everybody in the building was confused, and it was just a massive momentum shift inside the game.
And well, regardless of that one play, Syracuse were not having good looks. Full credit to the Notre Dame defense for forcing the Orange away from Cage in that second half. How did they do it?
Jesse, they put Chris Fake on Joey Spallina. Chris Fake is number 7 on Notre Dame men's lacrosse. He's a defender. He's about 6'1", and Joey Spallina was trying to back him down the entire game, and it led to no avail. Joey Spallina was shut down today by all accounts. Guys like Owen Hills, Cole Kurse were having to take shots from very far away from the goal. They slid really well, did not let Syracuse get across the face of goal, and when they needed to, they would strip the ball out of their sticks. It was a really impressive day from Liam Intiman with everything he had to go through throughout the entire game, but it was more impressive about the defensive packages that Notre Dame put on this Syracuse offense and specifically shutting down their best player in Joey Spallina. It was just an excellent display of defense the entire time and just a really good team effort. But Chris Fake was just on Joey Spallina constantly and shut down one of the best freshmen in the nation.
Ryan Bridges, thank you so much for joining us. Defense led the way for the Irish in a win over the Orange. But now let's take a look back at how things went down. What happened in this contest? And let's take a look at some of the highlights from this contest. Again, talking about it, entering this game, Syracuse had trouble every single time it had met the Irish in the last 5 tries, trying to put an end to that. But right away, the Irish jump out and score the early goal. That's Jake Taylor, who scored 8 a year ago against the Irish. He makes it 1-0 just over 90 seconds in, and Notre Dame would stretch that lead in the first frame. Here's Riley Gray diving towards Cage and scoring to make it 4-0 Irish. Into the second quarter now, still all Notre Dame over Syracuse, and as you flip sides of the field, didn't matter. Same result. Jake Taylor again, his second of the contest after a great find right on the doorstep by Eric Dobson. 7-2 Irish, but with 8:45 left in the frame, here's where Syracuse started to heat up. Michael Leo, the freshman, scores a goal. That cuts it down to 5. He's still got plenty of ball game left. Then, with 45 seconds left before the half, a score from Cole Kirsch makes it a 2-goal game into the locker rooms. Syracuse very much in this one. We flip sides of the field into the third quarter. There's Finn Thompson scoring off an assist from Michael Leo. The lead again cut down to 2. It's 11-9 Notre Dame. Into the fourth quarter, Syracuse goes on a run and actually takes the lead on this Cole Kirsch goal. He's celebrating, his teammates fired up. 12-11 SU. You still got 13 minutes left though, and Syracuse knew that. So did the Irish. Right on top here, Syracuse does not get a goal, and this was a big momentum shifter in the game because Notre Dame goes right down the field and knows what to do with it. Thought that one might have crossed the goal line, had some arguing with the officials, but the Irish quickly on the attack the other way. Nick Harris scores instead of 13-11 SU. It's 12-12, we're all knotted up, and that's all the momentum that Notre Dame needed to run away with this one. From 12-12, we now go to 16-12 after Riley Gray scores another. The Irish would tack on 4 more after that, 20-12. Notre Dame ends up getting the win. Guys, as you take a look at some of those stats on your screen, a game of runs, but you got to try and quiet down Jake Taylor and the Kavanaugh brothers. Syracuse just couldn't.
Not at all. They had their way for a brief period of time, ended up tying the game, but then things unraveled, mainly because Finn Thompson starts to celebrate on that goal. Syracuse think they finally climbed the mountain, but then the referees wave it off for Rule 2, Section 10 in the Lacrosse handbook. And there you go. Jake Taylor the other way for, well, it was Nick Harris, but Jake Taylor also having a fantastic day for the Fighting Irish, mainly because he found his way into one-on-one situations near the crease.
And one thing that this graphic doesn't show is the game in between the 30s. Notre Dame dominated the draw control, but also dominated the ground ball game. It's an ACC game. It's a gritty, physical contest, and Notre Dame was absolutely dominant in the middle third of the park. That's what led them to winning this game.
The Irish get their first ACC victory. Syracuse still looking for its first conference win. Well, we've got our first break here on OPP. Stay with us, though. When we return, our analysts head to the video board, break down some tape. Stick around to see some of the true reasons why the Irish won in the Dome. Hey, welcome back into our Citrus TV studios. Orange press pass following a 20-12 Syracuse lacrosse loss against Notre Dame. John Dales, Philip Galati, Jesse Cook with you. And this one ending in a loss for SU. We've got a couple of reasons why. Important plays throughout the contest. And we start with Philip, who's showing us how an ND marksman got so much free space early on.
And if there's one person you don't want to leave free on this Fighting Irish team, it's Jake Taylor, of course. Syracuse defense just not doing a good job of switching with the slides, and a lot of runs just didn't have their backers. Notre Dame did a really good job of exploiting on the strong side and the weak side of the ball, making sure they had the alleys, feeding players behind cage. Here's Chris Kavanaugh, strong side overload. Up top, Eric Dobson, he's going to call for the pick. And then number 23, Finn Thompson, he takes one step, doesn't anticipate it. Doesn't follow the run of Dobson. If you look over here, the player behind GLE is now double teamed. So Dobson has space. That means Caden Cole has to come across to cover. Quick pass in front of Cage. Cole's left his mark, and that mark is Jake Taylor. That can't happen if you're the Orange.
Straight up a bad move for Syracuse if you're letting players get that free. And you go back, you go ahead into the second half, and the pivotal play of the game where Syracuse thought that the Orange had the lead, and then the referee said, no, 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 no. That goal doesn't count. It was in the goalie's stick when it went over the line, so you're not going to score there. And then while Syracuse was celebrating the non-goal, the Fighting Irish took it all the way down the field, and Nick Harris potted one to give the Irish back the lead. And what happened there for Syracuse, it's not even something really fundamental, it's mental, where you have Finn Thompson and the rest of the offense celebrating, so there are no attackers and very few midfielders in the way of Harris as he's driving right to left. And then by the time he's there on the defensive side, none of the long sticks are expecting him to shoot that ball, so they lay off, and Will Mark is left out to dry one-on-one. And you can thank Rule 2, Section 10, AR 44 in the Men's Lacrosse Handbook for the ruling there.
Jesse, diving deep into the rule book. I appreciate that. Well, guys, one of the things that Coach Gate said after the contest is his team just kind of ran out of time. They hung tough with one of the best teams in the country, but in that fourth quarter is where it just slipped away. Notre Dame ripped off 9 unanswered goals in that fourth quarter. Jesse, I'm going to start with you. Do you agree with Coach Gate that his group, was right there, but just ran out of steam?
I don't agree with him. There's running out of steam, and then there's not taking a shot for 9.5 minutes with the game on the line. It's one thing for Notre Dame to score like that in the final frame, but to have your offense so asleep is just unforgivable if you're a Syracuse fan. You cannot let that happen if you're on the Syracuse offense. Pat March should seriously take a look at how he's running his team. Sure, you can get demoralized after that non-goal, but that's not running out of steam, that's giving up.
Well, on the defensive side of things for head coach Dave Petramala, they played well, especially in the second and third quarter. But yeah, I agree. In the fourth quarter, they straight up ran out of steam. On that last play that you just saw with Finn Thompson, when he anticipates that pick and roll, he takes one step and then he goes. That one step is just trying to catch his breath, trying to see what's going on. Again, it's reacting to the play and not being proactive to the play. It's just him trying to get back into the rhythm of the game because he's so tired. So maybe the fitness needs to get up a little bit, but yeah, the engine was empty in the fourth.
Well, guys, somebody who had plenty of steam left in the engine was Jake Taylor. 364 days ago when these two met, Taylor broke the ND single-game scoring record with 8 goals. Today, so-so, only 4 goals for him, but still a pretty good day for most people. Philip, it just seemed like Taylor is SU's kryptonite.
I mean, absolutely. 4 goals. Again, not a bad day at the office for any ACC lacrosse player, but it was his off-the-ball movement that really stuck out. On that play again, finding that open space. That's something that he does so well, and that's something that's really hard to do when you have so many defenders in Syracuse playing man-to-man, sometimes even switching up the zones. They're constantly changing the game plan. So being able to see the field and see those open spaces, that's why he's such a good player, and that's why he is the Achilles heel for this Orange team.
Achilles heel, kryptonite. You make it sound like it's something supernatural, but it's not. Jake Taylor has just been such a great player because, like you said, he finds space, but more importantly, he finds one-on-one matchups right near the goalie's crease. So by the time he gets the ball, he's got the skill and the strength and the know-how to get around one player. After he does that, it's Taylor and the netminder, and that's not a bargain for the man between the pipes.
Well, guys, now for our Orange Press Pass player of the game, not much of a surprise given what you just heard. Notre Dame's Jake Taylor takes home that honor. He led everyone on the field with 4 goals, scored the first goal of the game just 90 seconds in, had a hat trick before Syracuse even scored 3 times in the first half. He was quieted a bit in the second half, but had one more big late goal in that fourth quarter 9-0 run. So for all those reasons, Jake Taylor is our OPP player of the game. Another break here on OPP, but when we return, time to break out the panic meter. Trust me, you'll want to stick around for that. We'll be back in a Welcome back to our Citrus TV studio. John Dales, Philip Galati, and Jesse Cook after a Notre Dame beatdown of Syracuse 20-12. We're covering all here on Orange Press Pass. Guys, could have been a signature victory for Syracuse. Instead, it's another disappointing loss. Those are starting to stack up. So that being said, we're breaking out the panic meters, and these two guys are going to tell you a scale of 1 to 10 just how worried you should be about this Syracuse men's lacrosse team. And guys, we start with slow starts. Right off the bat, Cuse found itself down early. Jesse, how concerning is this?
It's pretty concerning. I'm going to do something that Syracuse has not been able to do, and I'm going to break out the hot sauce and bring this all the way up to a 9, John.
Wow.
Syracuse in big trouble in that venue. Slow starts. Syracuse right now is officially the worst team in the ACC in the fourth quarter when it comes to goals scored. They average 4 goals in the first quarter per game, and that is the absolute bottom of the conference.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah, whatever you're making, I can't eat. By the way, I can't even have like Taco Bell mild sauce, so I'll go a little bit lower with an 8.
What do you mean by that?
Still worrying, right? This is a young and inexperienced team. We get that, sure. But that breakdown in communication from the very opening face-off cannot be happening. Will Mark only has a certain amount of lung capacity. He's only going to be able to shout so much during the course of the game. Defense just needs to buy in and lock in earlier on.
All right, guys, so a decent amount of concern, fair to say, for starting off slow. But let's move ahead now, along with Jake Taylor. Face-offs have been an Achilles heel, kryptonite, whatever you want to say, to this Orange team this season. Gary Gate has switched between Johnny Racusa, Jack Fine. Neither of them have had much success, though. Today, the Irish win the face-off battle 23-13. Phil, bad may be putting it lightly when it comes to face-offs.
Bad is putting it very lightly. This one's a 9 for me. I'll tell you why, right? You see the Syracuse side, they didn't do well. I think you got to give a little bit of credit to Notre Dame, specifically to Will Lynch, who went 23 for 33 today. And that's an astounding number, especially when you consider in his last 2 contests, he went 2 for 13 against Duke, and then 3 for 13 against number 1 UVA. So finally he gets into his rhythm, and it's all going to fall apart from midfield. You can't let that happen.
I'm not as worried as you. I'm giving it a 6, mainly because Jack Fine held pretty close with his counterpart on the other side for most of the game. It was a relatively even battle until the fourth quarter when absolutely everything went down the drain. Also, this is the first time that Jack Fine has taken, it's only the second time that he's taken 30 draws in a single game. He's pretty inexperienced, but that's going to go up, and he's already gotten a better face-off percentage than Johnny Rachusa.
Hard to win a game when you're losing every time at the face-off X. Lastly, let's talk about poor shooting, because yes, you want to get off a lot of shots, but only if their quality looks at the cage. In this one, Syracuse fired 43 shots, only 22 of them on cage. Jesse, how concerning is that to you?
I'll give you a concerning factor of 8.
Okay.
Syracuse is having its fair share of problems in that department and getting outshot by pretty much every team they face. Syracuse, when they have fewer shots on goal than their counterpart, is 0-4. I'm no expert, but I don't think that's good. 0 wins. Is that good, Phil?
No, maybe not.
Are you sure? Are you
You're
sure?
not looking at the full picture. I'm giving this a 5. Here's why. Syracuse coming into this game, 34% shooting percentage. And you might say, oh, that's pretty low. Well, the 7 teams above them are all hovering around 35, 36. So really not that big of a difference. Today, around 27. So yeah, not great. But a little bit of a one-off today. Historically this season, they have been shooting well. Against tougher ranked teams, maybe not as much. So now it's about translating that success into higher ranked opponents. So I'm not as worried because they've shown signs of success before.
But shouldn't you be worried if it's only happening against ranked opponents? Who do you play in the postseason? Ranked opponents.
Right, but there's still time. There's still time to get some huge wins down the road.
All right, well, our analysts not quite saying the sky is falling, but we might be getting there if these losses keep stacking up. Might need some higher range panic meters, too, if the Orange keep losing. But that brings us to our final break. When we come back, we look ahead and we go around the nation. OPP back after this. Welcome back once more. Syracuse men's lacrosse picks up its 5th loss of the season, 20-12 against Notre Dame. John Dales, Philip Galati, and Jesse Cook breaking it all down for you here on Orange Press Pass. Guys, that's not the only game that happened, though, across the country. Let's take a look at what happened elsewhere in the nation of collegiate lacrosse this afternoon. And there's certainly a score that sticks out on the bottom left corner of your screen. Syracuse couldn't pull off an upset today, but unranked Michigan taking down number 2 Maryland. That sends some shockwaves across the country.
The Wolverines really brought out the claws and made the Terps run for it. 16-11, your final there. And that's pretty unusual for Michigan, who sits near the bottom of the Big Ten. They're in that lower half of teams in that conference. Maryland defending national champion, number 2 team in the nation, a team that is always a contender. It's their first Big Ten loss since 2019. Talk about a roller coaster.
I mean, put it simply, this is the Wolverines' biggest win as a program ever. Just the second time they've knocked off a top 5 opponent. The last time they did that, a 13-12 win in 2018 against number 4 Notre Dame. So how's that for a stat? And also looking at that Johns Hopkins game, Garrett Degnan with 100 career goals was the leading goal scorer and point getter for the Johns Hopkins team last year. Obviously a career blue blood program for them. And for me, a dark horse to winning the national championship.
Johns Hopkins certainly bounced back here. But taking those scores and other scores into account, we'll now show you where Syracuse sits in the ACC standings. And guys, you don't want to be at the bottom of that list, but that's exactly where SU finds itself. Yes, that is 4 very good teams in front of them, but the Orange have some work to do to even get up to maybe the 4 spots.
Syracuse has lost to every single ACC team they've played. That's every team on the list except for Virginia, the number 1 team in the land, and that comes at the end of the month. But the Orange have the worst goals against differential in the conference. For every 1.33 goals Syracuse scored, they allow a goal against. That is by far the worst out of any of those 5 teams up there. That shows why Syracuse is the only one not with a number next to it.
Yeah, it's pretty rough. But again, full credit to those 4 teams. For Duke on an 8-game win streak, upsetting number 1 UVA. Nobody saw that coming. And then UNC coming off wins against High Point and Providence, 2 unranked teams that don't play lacrosse very well. So it's a huge test for them next time out when they return to ranked competition against UVA.
Yeah, well, guys, next time out for Syracuse actually is next Saturday. So a week from today, the next Orange Press Pass is going to be following up that game as Syracuse takes on Princeton. This is a legit Ivy League opponent for Syracuse. So yeah, you go outside of the conference, but it doesn't get a whole lot easier.
Not at all. The Princeton Tigers are a team that know how to claw their way through. 2nd in the Ivy League in goals, 2nd in goals allowed, and then 3rd best record in a competitive conference.
An absolutely competitive conference. A couple Ivy League teams ranked, and Princeton, the top one of them.
The Orange going on the road for that contest, but we bring it back here to this game, Syracuse against Notre Dame. We're winding down our coverage here. Jesse, I begin with you. Your final thought on a Syracuse blowout loss at home.
Syracuse is the most temperamental team in the nation. That's the biggest emotions and the biggest emotional swings. Syracuse just lets games get away from them when they get upset, like they did today with Notre Dame.
Cardiac cues, right? They call that, Brett, for a reason.
Heart attack, yeah.
Heart attack cues. For me, final thought, the pieces are there, but the puzzle doesn't fit. Look, you've got Joey Spallini. You've got the number 1 recruiting class in the nation. You have Will Mark in Cage. And then you look off the field, Gary Gait, arguably one of the best lacrosse players of all time. Dave Petramala, probably the best defensive coach of all time. The talent is there. It's just not gelling. And you have to hope sometime in the near, maybe a little bit more far future, this program is going to get back to its glory days.
You said it. I mean, Gary Gait and Dave Petramala, 2 guys who won national championships as players. Petramala, who's won 2 as a head coach. You'd think it'd be there, and it just is not.
Hasn't been there so far in 2 years with Gary Gait, Petramala and company. Guys, quickly here, as we're looking ahead, we talked about that Princeton game. In order for Syracuse to get a win against Princeton, the Orange need to do blank.
Take uncontested shots. Find the open man. If that means using up more of the shot clock, then so be it.
One-on-one defense, got to communicate better, make sure every cutter has a backer.
Take better shots, you play better defense, you're probably going to be playing better lacrosse. Well, all right, that does it for Orange Press Pass following Syracuse's loss to Notre Dame. Alongside Philip Galati and Jesse Cook, I'm John Dales. Thanks so much for joining us.